Welcome to my show. A guest here. His name is Jeffrey McKeegee-Williams. Mr. Jeffrey, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey. Firstly, you are a speaker. You're also an author and the CEO of the Speaking Realm. Can you please, sir, discuss more about yourself and how you're doing currently now, sir?
Yeah. So first, thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be on this morning. So as you stated, my name is Jeffrey McKeegee-Williams, and I am a speaker and author and CEO of the company, The Speaking Realm. The Speaking Realm is a dynamic company that bridges multiple aspects of communication to reach as many people as possible. So, through speaking, book writing, and podcasting, that is our way of spreading our impact on the world and, sharing our story and sharing our values and wisdom. So that's a little bit about the company and kind of what I do. I am a Chicago native, born and raised in Chicago, and in every sense of the word, my life growing up was not ideal, and it was on a surefire course for dissipation. But luckily, through many different trials and errors in my life, I was able to overcome so much and be where I am today. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to continue to share my story through your platform and through many platforms. And yeah, I'm doing well. So thank you.
I'm so glad you are doing well, and I'm so glad you are still strong and standing today to do the right thing. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey. And you've also written a book, We Are Right Here. Can you please discuss more on that book? And do you also have more books you're planning to write in the coming future, sir?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, We Are Right Here is a book I wrote in college, actually. So, I released it in November of 2022. And it's a book pretty much documenting my life growing up in Chicago. So, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, USA. Um, Grew up on the South Side. I grew up in a neighborhood called Fuller Park, which is the third poorest in the entire city of Chicago. And the environment that I grew up in, coupled with my actual lived experience of dealing with very tough family dynamics and growing up in a townhome that was, abandoned and just decomposing every day and having to deal with so many traumatic things that no child should have to experience. The book pretty much documents my life and my upbringing and all of the things that I went through and that I learned along the way to changed my life in such a radical and such a swift manner, and kind of the intentional process behind how I was able to overcome all of the turbulence in my upbringing to materialize who I am today and the values I hold today. And who I was a half decade ago is nowhere near the person who is sitting right here today, on this podcast. And that's a testament to everything I've learned and being willing to be uncomfortable and being willing to challenge everything I've ever known. And that's something that I hold to high standards every day, even today. So yeah, that was a book that I really enjoyed. I always tell people who want to read it today. It's only been a couple years, but like I said, my philosophies and my outlook on life continues to shift and grow. And so while the upbringing and the rawness of the story remains the same in a lot of respects. The mentality, the outlook has greatly shifted and has continued to mature throughout the duration of my life and my story and everything I face every day. So yeah, I would say that is what the book is about. Everyone who's read it loved it, fortunately, and um, I do have another book that I'm going to be planning to write. I haven't started with that process yet. I really just want to make sure that I can focus on other realms of, as I said earlier, communication, so speaking and also podcasting as well. So just getting my story out there as much as possible for the next book that I do plan on writing, which is going to be a really good book. And I'm excited for when that process starts to um, come about.
Going to be a really, really great book because personal story definitely makes people to personally learn and also make them feel not alone in the life they are today. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey. And I would like to go to the point of two things, which is surviving and thriving. I know you've faced a lot, which has also built you and make you more stronger in your life today. And I would like to ask the difference between surviving and thriving. How do you personally define the difference between surviving and thriving, sir?
Yeah, thank you. So, survival versus thriving is a topic that I have for a presentation that I conduct. And essentially the topic is, are you surviving? And it's an interesting one. So, when I first focused on this topic, it was for my book. And essentially the point I was making was survival isn't exclusive to people that are not doing well financially and the daily realities they have to live through every day. And I firmly believe, even still to this day, that most people are indeed surviving. And looking at the difference between the two, survival, the definition of survive is to remain alive and in existence, so to live on, and also to continue to function and prosper. The problem comes in with survival is a lot of people think if they're doing well in glaring aspects, so aspects that we care about, right? Career wise, family wise, maybe you have a house, maybe you have all of these nice things in your life that you've accumulated. We generally hold that to very high standards in society. And therefore, people think as a result of having those things that they're absolved from a survival lifestyle and they equip themselves with the title of thriving. But I personally believe that as a differing stance, thriving is to be on a course of betterment and improvement and development in every aspect of our lives. So not just what we acquire, but from an intrinsic standpoint, what do we require in regard to character, in regard to consistency, in regard to work-life balance, emotional stability, mental well-being? In my opinion, every aspect of our lives needs significant attention in order for us to truly get to that level of thriving. Versus survival, in my opinion, is, as I stated, doing well off maybe in one or a few glaring aspects, but neglecting or not putting sufficient effort into every aspect of our lives that requires us to show up each day in a strong and efficient manner.
Yeah, thank you so much for the detailed explanation, Mr. Jeffrey. And there will also be tools, there will also be techniques that someone can also use to, cultivate the thriving mindset. I know surviving is what every single person do, but what practical tools or techniques can someone use to cultivate a thriving mindset, sir?
Yeah, well, sorry. That's a pretty difficult question because I think it varies from person to person, right? I think the most universal aspect that we can all do, no matter what your living circumstances are, is the self-acknowledgement of where you are, of who you are, and who you want to be. So I personally don't believe that we should be on a course of life of finding ourselves. I think the most meaningful and strong aspect of our lives is creating ourselves. And a couple years ago, I heard that from a fellow speaker. And ever since, I became a full supporter of that philosophy that we don't find ourselves, we create ourselves. And I think when we are finding ourselves, we are finding aspects of what we're familiar with that aligns to where we personally want to be. And no matter how toxic to the people we want to become, no matter how detrimental a space may be, if we do find familiarity, if we do find this sense of home, we resign to that area of finding ourselves. And when like I always say, when you're finding yourself, life will hand you what you're finding. Versus when you're creating yourself, you are being intentional about figuring out in this world who you want to be. How do you get to that aspect of who you want to be in this world? And going through all of the trials, the errors, just every aspect that may be challenging, that may be difficult for many to get to that place. How do we get out of the mindset of this is what I want for myself. And if I get these things, then I'm successful. If I get these things, then I'm thriving. To how can I show up as a better human being every day? Just because that is where we should all be as human beings on a lifelong course of self-betterment in every aspect of our lives. And that acknowledgement, in my opinion, is what we can all do on a practical tip. And then that varies from person to person from that point. What does it look like for you to show up in a healthy and strong manner in every aspect of your life? That for me, that will look like reflections, that will look like, daily imagery, that will look like journaling, that will look like focusing on my physical health. That will mean continuing to challenge my comfort zone and push those bounds of the comfort zone to constantly be in a state of being uncomfortable because that's where our growth is. And that's where we start to see true and meaningful changes and outlooks in our lives. And that's what equips us with invaluable perspective. So
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey. And definitely, you also have personal habits, daily habits, and practices that do help you to grow and flourish. What do you think are some habits or practices that help continue to grow and flourish, sir?
so habits. I would say for habits, it's just the daily reality of consistency.
Okay.
And in a few presentations I talk about, I mention consistency from a very strong standpoint of when we think about consistency, oftentimes we think about showing up every day in an ideal way, right? That's what we all want to be. That's what we all should be. But consistency is not just this positive aspect. If we are if we are inconsistently consistent, then consistency reigns regardless. So whether you're consistently striving to be who you want to be every day and you consistently show up and you consistently put effort into where you want to be and to a thriving mindset and a thriving person versus if you continue down a path of some days I'll do it if I'm feeling like it, if everything in my life is where I need it to be, then I'll show up for it. I think that is the true difference of being consistent in an ideal way and being consistently inconsistent. Regardless, consistency remains. And a habit for me is making sure that every day I'm as consistent as possible. Does that mean I'm perfect? No, make a lot of mistakes, but that's the point, right? Making an effort in general to want to see better in every aspect of your life and not looking past mistakes. A lot of times we go through things in life and we see it as an inconvenience or we don't take those mistakes and learn from them, right? So if I get in a conflict with someone, I'm going to assess later how I handled it. And is it a sign that my emotional stability needs to continue to be nurtured? And does it need to continue on a course of self improvement on my end so that I can show up better, not only for myself, but for my family and for everybody that I interact with on a daily basis? So it's things like that that I would say contribute to the habits as opposed to just living life or trying to achieve this illusion of if I get all of these things in my life that everybody will physically admire, then my life will be perfect. Then I'll be thriving. So that's what I would say in regard to daily habits.
Hmm, thank you so much. And are they cultural or societal expectation that keep people stuck in survival mode, sir?
I don't want to necessarily say expectations. I think the appropriate phrasing for it will be our bubbles, right? We all exist in our bubbles where we are comfortable, where we feel seen, our bubble of normalcy, as I would say. And I think for many people, it's less about feeling like you need to meet an expectation versus this is just what you've seen all of your life, right? And a lack of a rich perspective, a lack of a diverse perspective for a lot of people leads to them only knowing what's in their this almost illusion blueprint on where they need to be in life. And so for for me, I think the biggest aspect of getting out of that is isolation. And that's a whole different philosophy I have. But essentially, the preface is exposure is complementary to isolation, meaning that in order for one to experience the fullness of life, of growth, of a revelation of any magnitude, they must first isolate. And I think the lack of people isolating from their bubble leads to a closed off perspective. And if you see people in your life that are doing well in a few aspects, but they're always stressed, but they're always on edge, you don't, a lot of times people look beyond those negative aspects and only focus on how do I get to this place so that I can enjoy the monetary fruits of life. And for me, I think it's important that we break away from being exclusively confined to our bubbles and more to a place of who do I need to be for myself and how do I get to that place? And what perspectives do I need to continue to gain? What wisdom do I need to continue to equip myself with so that I don't fall under the light of I need everybody to see that I'm doing well in these aspects, right? A
Mm.
lot of times the reality is people don't care about improving their life, right? People don't care about looking after every aspect of their health and well-being. A lot of times we only care about getting to a place where we can show off to others what we have. But I've noticed throughout my diverse perspectives that a lot of people are dead inside and a lot of people don't know who they are. And that creates this, what we all see, that looks like this expectation that everybody has that I need to be here. But I think it's less an expectation and more us just simply being confined to our bubbles, not willing to pop the bubble, as I like to say, pop the bubble, not being willing to pop the bubble and be uncomfortable and be in spaces where you will be challenged, where you will understand how minute your perspective is in comparison to the entire world. And it's really crucial that we, pop the bubble. So yeah, I would say less so expectations, more so us being confined to our bubble.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey. Thank you so much, sir. And a lot of some parents that might be listening to this might also want to see, even hear from your perspective, like an advice that you could give to them that could possibly benefit their children today. You know, in the time we are today, a lot of things have changed. During the historic time, a lot of things are more different in our time today. So, what advice do you think you have for parents who want to help their children thrive, sir?
Yeah, well, I think a personal parenting philosophy that I have
Mm.
is modeling. I don't believe in I believe less so in preaching versus modeling. I always say kids don't practice what's preached, they practice what's modeled.
Mm.
And for us to show up each day in the strongest, healthiest version of ourselves or to the best of our abilities, right? The main thing is effort, consistent effort. And when your children see you trying, they would consider it normal. So, for example, I work out twice a day. I work out. I go to the gym the first thing in the morning. My son, who's 3, he doesn't see me when he wakes up in the morning. He expects that he won't see me in the morning. He knows I'm at the gym. And I'll also work out in the evening when he's home. So I'll take time away from him for about 20 to 30 minutes to do a core workout, a core exercise. And I could easily ask him to run around and move his body around. He's going to do so anyway. He's a toddler, but it's really fulfilling to me to see that he will get one of the other yoga mats we have, lay it beside mine, and work out with me. And I don't think it's because this is just something that he's bored and he just wants to do this, but this is what he considers normal. A healthy environment where we continue to challenge ourselves, where we continue to challenge what we know, the ability to be vulnerable, to have humility, to actually listen to each other. And that was something that I think generationally I had to overcome significantly to get to that point. The ability to sit down with him and let him know that I made a mistake and I apologize. Yesterday, I was trying to get some work done in a room and he was banging on a wall with his feet. And so I like yelled on the camera, like, JJ, I need you to cut it out. And later he came back to me and he said, like, you told me to cut it out on the camera. And I could tell that he was a bit frustrated by that. And I had to let him know that I apologize for how I approached that situation. I was very frustrated. I was trying to get some work done. And we actually got to have a conversation. And that's something that, where I grew up, that would have never happened with it, especially with the 3-year-old. And so, like I said, kids practice what's modeled, not what's preached. And so that is my biggest tip for a lot of people. I've heard many parents talk about how their kid won't get up, their kid isn't motivated for school, their kid isn't motivated with life, their kid doesn't really seem passionate about anything. And I then pose the question or the challenge, what do they see that gives them that motivation? And how do you tie what you do to how they show up? So if you are pushing your lines of comfort and stability and you're, stepping outside of your comfort zone, that's something that your kids will see and in turn want the same for themselves. But if you aren't doing that, then it's very difficult to have that expectation of someone who looks up to you every single day. And so that would be my biggest advice for parents that want to help their kid thrive.
Modeling is a very, very big thing. I also remember during my young time, what you just said earlier about your 3-year old. During my young time, it might not go out that way, My more of the older time, we always have more strict parents, a lot of things happen during that time. But, modeling, knowing how to speak to children, knowing how to do stuff like that really, really works. And I want to personally also sincerely thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, for the time, for speaking on the point of survivor and thriving. We always space a lot, every single person to survive today, and we're all trying to just, bring something out of the world before we move on to the next world. I want to sincerely thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All
Appreciate the
right,
time.
sir. All right, sir. Bye bye.
Bye.